You're watching The Luke Bryan Show.
Hello, everyone. It's Luke Zacharias here. This is The Luke Bryan Show. I'm a lawyer in Chilliwack, British Columbia.
And I'm Brian Vickers, a lawyer in Abbotsford, BC.
And today we have Ihor Varys, who is a ultramarathon celebrity by all accounts. And he is a Chilliwack resident and is one of the top athletes ever to come from Chilliwack. So wanted to talk to Ihor about some of his exploits as an ultramarathoner. So welcome, Ihor.
Thanks, Luke. Thanks, Brian. I'm really excited to be on your show.
Awesome. So before we get into ultramarathoning, is that the correct term? Ultramarathoning, ultrarunning, does it matter?
Sure. Yeah, they're both correct. Yeah.
Okay. So a bit about your background. You have an interesting background that brought you to Canada and Chilliwack. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm originally from Ukraine, so born and raised Ukraine. Moved to Canada just over, actually 9 years ago. So a couple of days ago, it was 9 years. Came here as a student by myself. Was just looking for something exciting, to do, some new country to travel, learn new language, and, just broaden my outlook as a young kid. I guess at that point I was 20 years old, and came across Canada, and was really fortunate to move here, and first actually moved to Manitoba, which is central Canada, and no one really told me how cold it was there, but that's okay. I feel like it contributed and helped me with getting stronger both physically and mentally as an ultra runner. And I was a student there for 2 years, and then I figured I needed some activity to process all the thoughts and everything that's happening with me, and new culture, new language, new country. Everything was pretty challenging, and didn't really have family around, so needed some activity to actually process everything that's happening. I didn't want to move towards unhealthy habits, wanted to do something healthy, and running came across as a healthy alternative and quite a cheap sport to do. All you need is a couple of runners, right? And at that point, it was cheap. Once you progress, things are piling up. But started running, did some road running, because there's not much going on in Manitoba in terms of trails. So I was running on the roads, did some 10, 15, 20 kilometers, got into half marathon and then marathon. And then COVID happened, and you were technically not allowed to be on the sidewalks. You're supposed to self-isolate unless you really need to step out. So you're judged if you're running on the roads, and that's where I discovered trails. So COVID, it was a tragedy for the humankind, but for me, it actually opened a door of opportunities, which is kind of ironic. So how I discovered trails, and I ran into trail runners there and more like-minded people, and they told me about ultra running, and I was like, oh, we can run distances more than a marathon? I didn't know that. And then that's how I discovered this world of ultra running, where people go any distance above marathon. That's basically what ultra running or ultra marathoning is. So, and most common distances would be 50K, 100K, 100 mile, and so on. There is actually, things are getting out of control with ultra running, that you can see 200 mile, 300 mile races out there, or multi-day events like the backyard we'll be talking about later. But and then 3 years ago, I moved to British Columbia. I figured I really wanted to be in the mountains and up my game as an ultra runner. And British Columbia, obviously, a place to be in Canada if you want to develop and grow as a ultra runner and trail runner. And moved here, got a job here, and been living here ever since.
So I was just going to say, is there a difference between ultra running as far as distance and then also like the hill and the trail running? Like, are they classified as different things, or?
Yeah, technically, any distance over a marathon is ultra running. So yeah, you can run on the roads or trails, but most common ultra running event would be on the trail, including lots of vertical gain somewhere in the woods, in some national or provincial parks. So yeah, there is events that are ultra marathons, and they are happening on the roads, but they're not as common and as popular. So every time you hear ultra running, most likely people refer to trail running somewhere in the woods. But clearly, there is people that set world records running, say, 100 kilometers on the road. And obviously, the fastest way to do it, if you run on the road, right, and you have those super shoes that help you on flat ground. But you throw in some hills, well, it's really hard to set any world records, you know, with hills. So, yeah.
So before we get further down the ultra running path, Ukraine is in the news a lot over the last few years, and having grown up there, I'm super curious to hear about what that was like, and how is Canada different, and what has been your experience of coming to Canada? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. I ever since I moved from Ukraine, never went back home. Well, technically Canada is home now. Yeah. I'm the citizen now. But yeah, growing up is very different in Ukraine. And as I came here, at first I experienced cultural shock, starting from food, ending with how people, move around. For instance, back home, a car or vehicle is luxury. Here it's means of transportation, but back home it's a luxury. It's like not many people can afford a car, and if people can afford a car, they probably have some super solid jobs because vehicles are super expensive. So as a child, I ended up walking with my mom to and from school 3 kilometers each way for 10 years. And the thing is that we have some public transportation too, so we could hop on the bus, but we also couldn't really afford doing it every day. So as growing up, walking was just part of our lives. So for 10 years, we would do that back and forth with my mom. She's a school teacher, and she keeps doing it right now. Even though I try to buy her a car, I can afford her a car. She can afford a car for herself, but she chooses not to drive just because she says movement is life. It's part of her life. And then when I went to university, I would end up walking 5 kilometers to university and back. Again, I could have hopped on a trolley bus or train, but as a student, you're always trying to save. So that part was very different. And say nutrition and food was very different. So when I came here, I found a job as a server at the restaurant. I had to learn entire kitchen. It's like all this salad dressings, all this dipping sauces. Like we don't have that. We don't have deep fried food, or we do, but it's just not as commonly used. Like I remember McDonald's for me was like a birthday trip. So my mom would take me to McDonald's for a birthday. And for me, French fries were something like a gourmet food. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, it's my birthday. Let's go to McDonald's and have a cup of Coke, and fries. And I would eat it like once a year only on my birthday because it was a treat. Here, it's like, it's different, right? Like fast food is normal because here, time is money, back home. No, we would come home, we would cook. So we don't have fast food restaurants, but then we do, but they're not as popular as here. It's different. But then looking back, I could understand, say, okay, well, I was eating kind of as healthy as possible, as natural as possible. Right? I was moving, I was walking every day. I was never overweight or obese. We don't even have that issue. If anything, people get bullied for being obese, and it doesn't happen very often. And people don't take it as bullying. It's more like, okay, it's my incentive to get better. It's just different environment here. People get offended when you call them that, or, you being straightforward. And I get it. It's just different culture, right? So coming here, I couldn't be so straightforward to that person. You have to respect the choices and lifestyle that person has. So it's something new I had to learn. But yeah, I moved, you were mentioning Ukraine on the news. I moved before the war started, or I guess the war started in 2014, but it was just in the east part, and it wasn't as, I guess, full-fledged, right? It wasn't a full-scale war, and it was just starting developments in the east part of Ukraine. I was studying at the University of so I was studying international relations. So I wanted to be a diplomatic envoy or ambassador of Ukraine in other country. And I was studying languages, so I was trying to represent my country in other countries. But the government that we had at that point, I just realized I did not want to be the face of the government, because diplomatic envoy is usually the person representing country, but in fact it represents what the government does, and the government at that point was anti-humane, and we as students stepped out on the streets of the capital and said no, we wanted really to move towards European standards, whereas the current government was moving towards Russian standards. And what kind of Russian standards do we know, right? Those are not standards. Anyways, and we wanted to say no. We wanted to change the government direction just by peaceful protest, but they turned guns on us. And that's at that point when I realized that I didn't really want to be a part of that government. Didn't want to be diplomatic ambassador of that government. And that's when I made that decision to, okay, what's out there? Let's see if I can explore the world. And that's where I came across Canada. This opportunity popped up in Manitoba first. The rest is history. I moved 9 years ago and been in Canada ever since.
When you were sort of canvassing the countries and stuff to come to, why Canada over other countries?
Well, there is a huge diaspora of Ukrainians in Canada. One of the largest in the world, I think second largest after Russia. And so I emailed a lot of university and colleges, all English-speaking countries. So I went USA, Australia, United Kingdom, and Canada. And Canada was probably the most responsive and the friendliest, I would say, in the communication with me. I was like a foreign kid in this country, hell knows where, but I felt that personal touch coming from Canadian colleges and Canadian university, and this college, Assiniboine Community College in Manitoba, was the best option. And at that point, it was the best price too, because international students pay 4 times more than permanent residents or Canadian citizens. So I had to make some smart choices financially because, well, I didn't have that much money to bring with me at first. I would have to work a lot after school. And Manitoba also came as a affordable option too, as opposed to, say, if I went straight to BC first or Ontario, studied in Toronto, I would have ended up paying much, much more. So that's how I ended up in Manitoba. And then I learned why it was cheaper because of the weather. Nobody told me how cold it was.
What did you study at Assiniboine College?
It was business administration.
Okay.
So I was studying international business, international relations in Ukraine. So it was kind of nice segue to move over, and lots of things I already knew from back home. So it was fairly easy to transition, and because you can't really transfer your education from Ukraine to Canada. Like everyone who comes here, they have to basically study from scratch. So if you're a doctor or, say, dentist, doesn't matter. You got to come here, study from scratch. So you can't just transfer your certificate or diploma. And partially it makes sense because Ukraine is still a fairly corrupted country to an extent. You know, things are moving in the right direction right now with people trying to move towards European standards. But back home, you can actually buy your diploma, buy your certificate. And that's why there is mistrust, from Canadian government towards our educational system. And that's why they make you kind of study from the beginning. So I just wanted the opportunity to come as a student, and business administration was something close to my heart. And I guess it wasn't as expensive. It was still expensive. I thought, like, holy shoot, like this, I can't believe how expensive education here is. Because in Ukraine, it's free. So as long as you study well, you get free education, which is amazing. So it's a bit different here.
What do you mean by study well?
Yeah, if you get good marks, so say high school, there's an national exam, and if you score, they basically, if you score the highest marks, the top, whatever, 10 spots in every single faculty or department of every single university gets free education. In fact, university pays you a little scholarship. Not much, nothing, not enough to get by, but still
enough to buy a car.
Not enough to buy a car for sure, but enough to buy some lunches here and there. But at least, you know, you don't pay for education. Like, do we have even free education in Canada? If you get some scholarship or sports support, right, it's big here. But in Ukraine, if you're just studying well, if you're getting good marks, that national exam, you're able to get to secure a free education spot in any university. And our education is great. I feel like we're studying a lot of things that are not even applicable sometimes to this particular industry, but it kind of broadens your outlook, you know, makes you more interesting as a person. With that said, there's that corruption part where people that have deep pockets, they don't have to study. They can just pay and unfortunately get a diploma. And those people end up in, you know, in the government, and that's where we get those problems. But again, it's not as bad as it used to be. And we're now with obviously with the war and with the desire to be a better country, to be a European country, we are trying to move towards European standards where people are changing their mindsets towards, you know, not paying a bribe for education.
Right. Yeah. So let's turn the conversation back to marathon and ultra running. And so I think where we left off was you moved out to BC and then you were getting into it during COVID. So why don't you take it from there and tell us kind of where that went next for you?
Yeah, sure. So with COVID, I was still in Manitoba, started running on the trails, discovered these ultra distance events. And with COVID, everything was still shut down. So there's no official races happening. However, there's such a thing as FKT, or fastest known time thing, where people just go on the trail by themselves. They run it as fast as they can, wearing their GPS watch, and they upload it on the website, and whoever runs the fastest basically claims that time or claims that trail. So in even though Manitoba is not known for ultra running, you'd be surprised, there's quite a few pretty hard trails. Not necessarily a lot of vertical gain, there's no mountains, but there's technical trails. There's Canadian Shield that runs between Manitoba and Ontario border, and there's a trail called Ontario that runs 63 kilometers point to point, and there's only one entrance and one exit. So there's no approach in between. So if you are stuck in the middle, you can get only helicoptered out. There is no way to drive to you. So I decided, okay, well, let's go after that trail. See, it's a very popular one, and see what I'm made of. You know, see if this distance works for me. And I ran 63K, and I got the fastest known time ever. And I actually felt great. And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. And then one of my friends offered me to run it out and back. So do like 126 kilometer run. And it's never been done before, but I did it, and I actually felt amazing, especially in the second half. And that's when it kind of clicked in my head, hey, actually, I think going distance is your thing. And I was hooked on going distance. I was hooked on those feelings when your body is telling you to stop, yet mentally you're capable of pushing yourself through that pain cave. And I finished that run, and I guess it got into newspapers, and it was a big deal, I guess, in Manitoba, because it's never been done before. And I moved to BC the week after, so I had that, I guess, confidence in going distance, and that's when COVID was kind of getting close to the end, and official events were returning, in-person events. And there was a race on the island called Finlayson Arm. It's a 100-kilometer race. While you're running 100 kilometers, you're climbing 6,000 meters up and 6,000 meters down. So I signed up for that race, and I did it 2 months after. It was my first, 2 months after I moved to British Columbia. So it was my first race, obviously, just fresh from Manitoba. So no one really knew me. I was just some guy from, plain fields and from boring Manitoba, as they say, but it's not that boring. And I ended up winning that race, and I ran the fastest time ever. And that's when I realized, okay, well, I can not only run distance, I can actually be competitive here, because there were a lot of competitive folks from the island. Obviously, people live there, train in the mountains, so they're mountain people. And
so you'd never really trained in mountains before?
No,
and you just
I've never
ran that
actually
race.
seen mountains. So, like back in Ukraine, I lived on the shore of the beach. We have the Black Sea, gorgeous place, gorgeous property, but it's flat. There's no even hills. And I saw mountains once in Ukraine, but I never hiked there or did anything. And in Canada, I've never seen mountains before. So it was like my first time at mountains. But because I trained in Manitoba, there's some hills there that I would repeat. There's one 30 or 28 meter hill that I would run for hours and hours up and down.
Yeah.
Sometimes in minus 30, minus 35 in winter, but I would do it religiously every week on Thursdays after work. And that's how I built my climbing legs, And so when I moved to BC and did this first race, I had no expectations, but my legs and my body, they were strong enough to withstand this pounding and actually be fast and be competitive. So I kind of surprised myself, and I was like, okay, well, what's next? And that's how it, definitely.
Just for people's reference, I mean, 6,000 meters, how like Mount Everest, how?
So Mount Everest is 88.48, 88.50, so just under that. So, but remember, you jam it in 100K, so it's not, it's a lot of vertical gain. This is like a European type of race, because you go to Europe, everything's so steep there, so there's only up and down, there's not much flat running. So for the 100K, 6,000 meters is actually a lot of climbing. Like if you think even locally here, so you go do like Mount Elk, it's 800 meters, one elk, and sometimes people spend 3-4 hours doing just one that stretch. And here we go, 6,000, you cover 100 kilometers. So I still feel like it was one of the most technical, most challenging races I've done in terms of terrain and vertical gain per kilometer of terrain.
So one of the things you referenced in kind of what you were just talking about that I'm really interested in terms of your story, and maybe we can weave this throughout as you go through the next phase of this, but you called it the pain cave. And tell me, what does that mean? And walk me through what that looks like for you.
Yeah, good question. Look, it's a long story, but well, you would hear it a lot from the ultra runners and not only even the, say, professional marathoners. But in ultra running, it doesn't matter how strong you are or how hard you train. When you go distance like 100K, 100 mile and beyond, at a certain point, your body starts aching and your body starts sending you signals saying, hey, something's wrong here, something's wrong there, you're tired. I mean, like, come on, we don't cover 100-mile distance on a daily basis. So for our bodies, it's a big stress, even if you're a trained athlete. So at some point, your body starts sending you signals, hey, I think it's time to stop. Hey, something is hurting here. Hey, something is hurting there. And at some point, it's maybe only 40, maybe only 50 kilometers into the race. Well, you got another 110 kilometers to go if it's a 100-mile race. And that's when you realize that, okay, well, this is the pain that's inevitable, and many, in fact, all ultra runners expecting it, because the pain cave is going to come, and that's what we call the pain cave, where your body physically starts hurting. So you enter that pain cave, and you are learning or trying to navigate yourself in that pain cave. Sometimes, and that's what happens with me, it's a work when you enter pain cave and get out of it, enter again, get out. They say that ultra running is all about kind of ups and downs, and lows never last forever. Ups never last forever. So ultra running is all about navigating these ups and downs until you cross the finish line. When you're in the pain cave, sometimes when things are not really working well, you might end up being there for hours. And how do you navigate in that pain cave for hours? And that's where the mental strength comes to play. And you often hear that ultra running is all mental. They say ultra running is 80% mental and another 20% also mental. It's just basically what people try and say is that in an ultra race, the body is going to hurt. Eventually, the body is going to hurt. And it's all about your mental strength to push yourself, to override those physical signals that your body is sending. Because if something is aching, your body is basically just telling you, okay, something is wrong with your body. You're doing something bad to yourself, and you need to stop, right? The pain is good. It just means you're alive, right? Like, it means everything's fine. But usually you stop when something hurts. But when an ultra race, especially if you're trying to podium or you win the race, you can't just stop, you got to keep moving. In fact, you got to keep moving fast. And that's where your mental strength comes to play. You override those signals. You keep telling yourself, lying yourself. There's multiple tricks, tools available out there, and different things work for different athletes. But it's all about mentally pushing yourself to that finish line, no matter how hard, how painful it is in that pain cave.
So what are some of the tricks and tools you've used to overcome? So a bit of background, in terms of as trialers for us, there's very much a mental component that's very, very significant in what we do, because you're entering essentially a battle in a courtroom, and the battle has many facets, and you enter the pain cave in trial. It's very not in the same way you do, but it's a lot of battling with your thoughts and being confident in your ideas and your abilities and battling through those things. But there is a huge component of just exhaustion during a trial as well. Work 18, 20-hour days and very little sleep, and it can be for weeks on end. And so I'm really interested in this concept because it really applies very similarly to what we do in our profession. Is somewhat different, but very similar in terms of, I have ways that I, trick my mind when I'm in that process to keep going, right? So I'd be super interested to hear how you do that and what tools you've used and what's worked and what hasn't.
Yeah. That's a good one. I like how you're drawing parallels here. Yeah. But that's the thing with ultra running. I feel like you can apply a lot of concepts and not only on business life, but also say personal life or any walks of life that you're using. So you can call yourself an ultra runner. 18 hours of battling there. It's just you're running your own race, right? So why not? Right?
I'll try that on. Yeah.
There you go.
You said you start to hurt after 40 to 50 kilometers. I'm like, I might make it 4 to 5 kilometers before I'm pain cave.
I mean,
exactly.
I am.
I mean, again, it's all in perspective. I did the races that lasted multiple days, 5 days. So, and if you start hurting 50K into that race, okay, you got a problem. You probably something is off. But if say there is a 100-miler, so 50K is just roughly 1/3 of it, and you're sending it off fast, you're running zone 3 all the time, or 4 sometimes. And
what's zone 3, zone 4 mean?
Basically, so your high heart rate, you're just about to burn, to go anaerobic, and meaning that you're pushing so hard that your heart rate, so that exertion is not sustainable for a long time frame. So if you zone 4 or 5 is like basically you're sprinting, so you can't run in those heart rate zones for a long time frame. So you're trying to run as fast as possible, but at the same time to be able to cover that distance in that zone. So zone 1 is just easy jogging, walking, super low heart rate. So usually endurance athletes are breaking down their heart rate into zones, and they're trying to train in those zones. I'm not big into heart rate, but again, if we were just comparing, So if you're pushing hard, sometimes 50K into the race, you start, okay, this is hurting, but it's all about pushing through. But if it's a long race, like a backyard, you're walking part of it. So you're trying to be as efficient, as effective, and as conservative as possible, because you want to conserve energy to be able to run through multiple days and nights. But yeah, going back to your question, Luke, about all their tools.
Strategies,
Yeah, I can't tell you because I'll have to kill you.
It's all your secrets.
If you tell us, we'll be as good as you, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
No. I mean,
secret sauce.
I don't use anything. It's all open there, right? It's like I'm not trying to. There's no certain tools that are not out there already, and I feel that there's one of the best option or strategy that I use is breaking into compartments or think in small compartments. There's a book called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a philosophical book where so the boy is asking the horse. They are both in the fog, and there's the boy and the horse, and the boys can see where to go, and because it's so foggy. And the boy asks, "Hey, and the horse, because the horse is the wise one. Listen, it's so foggy. There's nothing I can see. Like, what do I do?" And the horse says, "Can you see your next step?" And boy says, "Yes." Take it. So basically, similar approach in ultra running. You don't think in a 100-mile compartment. If you stand in the start line and you think, okay, 100 miles, holy shoot, it's just such a long way to go. Run from here to Vancouver and back. That's ridiculous. If you wire your brain that way, well, you're going to be mentally a wreck from the very first step. You cannot think in that big compartment. You have to break it down and think a small run. I'm going to run from aid station to aid station. This is what I'm going to think of. I'm going to run to the first aid station, which is 10 kilometers. From there, I'm going to think about next compartment. I'm going to run from this aid station. I'm going to think about if things getting even harder, I'm going to think in kilometer compartments. I'm going to run 1 kilometer. I'm going to look at my watch and say, yeah, I ran 1 kilometer. I'm going to celebrate it. Move on to the next one. But I will never think about the whole big picture. So we're talking about a backyard where the race that does not have a finish.
When we talk about backyard, why don't you explain what backyard is, and let's get into that one.
For sure. Yeah.
Super interesting.
Yeah. So the backyard is probably the extreme of ultra running. This is the race that has no finish line. It's a so-called demolition derby of human races, meaning that it's a last man standing format. So there is a loop, the distance of the loop of 6.71 kilometer. You run that loop every hour. On the top of the hour, you start that loop, you finish that loop, and you can run it as fast as you want or as slow as you want, as long as you do it within 1 hour. And say, if you cover it in 40 minutes, you have 20 minutes, you can rest, you can eat, you can sleep if you want, but you have to start next loop on the top of the hour. So
you can't stack them and like bank time or
correct. Yeah. So 6.7 kilometer, not really long distance if you think of like. Definitely you can cover it in 1 hour. You can actually walk it if you're a fast walker. But you do it hour after hour after hour, and it's easy until it's not easy. That's basically the saying about this race. And there's no breaks at night. So you go hour after hour, through the night, through the day, through the night, and you go until you are either dead or you're out or you are the last man standing. So if you can't complete the loop within an hour, you're out. If you don't start on the top of the hour as the bell rings, you're out. And yeah, it goes until you're the last man standing. And I know Luke knows what the world record is. What about you, Ryan? If you were to guess.
It was 103.
I think I told him this morning. Sorry.
If I didn't know that, though, I mean, it's wild, yeah.
But it's, because a few years ago, people were thinking about, say, 72 hours as something impossible. So 3 days, 3 nights. And again, the idea behind the distance is that such an odd distance, right? 6.7 is that every 24 hours you cover 100 miles, which is a huge achievement. To run 100 miles under 24 hours in ultra running world is a big deal. And here people were thinking, okay, 72 hours would be some impossible barrier to break. Well, last year at the individual world championship in Tennessee, that happened in October last year, 6 people actually broke the 100-hour barrier just in one race. So the world record is currently at 108 hours, which is 450 miles, which is 4.5 days of running nonstop, no continuous sleep, nothing like that. So just going back to the strategies, how do you prepare yourself for the race that has no finish? So if you have a 100-miler and I know the elevation profile, I know that, okay, well, I'll probably finish this race within 20 hours or 22 hours. I'll be done after 22 hours. I'll go home, I'll sleep, I'll put my feet up. Well, here's the race that I don't know how long it's going to be. It can take 2 days. It can take 4 days. I mean, this is a huge leap, right? How do you train yourself? And that's where you approach it in small compartments. You don't think about 100 hours you're going to run, which is ridiculous. Like, you're going to run 100 hours. If someone told me that I was going to run 100 hours at that World Championships, I would be like, are you out of your mind? Like, who do you think I am? I'll probably collapse, halfway through. But you approach 1 hour at a time. You do one loop at a time. You complete that loop. You celebrate that loop. You adjust little things, eat, nap if you can, on to the next one. And you break it down. Before you know it, it's 100 hours. I remember so the previous course world record was 102 hours. And so I ran loop 103 first. So I broke the world record and I was a new world record holder. But by then you get so delirious, delusional, sleep deprived, confused that I actually didn't even know I broke the course record or the world record. So the wife of the previous world record, who quit after 100 hours, actually, she came up to me to congratulate me. And I was like, really? I did the world record? She's like, yeah, congratulations. Like, no way, you're lying. And so I couldn't believe it, at that point. But yeah, before you know it, it's been 4.5 days, and it was just me and another runner left. And we were battling it out for the win. And I would remember looking back, I was like, I cannot believe it's been 107 hours already. And all I did, I was just thinking about this little micro goals every hour at a time. And I guess being in the courtroom, I guess you don't think about probably the final goal. I mean, obviously you keep it in the back of your mind, but you work step by step, minute by minute, hour and hour, right, to breaking down your defense strategy and so on, right? Yeah. And something you probably can use in that realm as well. That's just one of the strategies again, and one of the other favorite strategies that I love to use when things are getting tough is kind of bringing myself back to the previous experiences that I had. Or I don't know if you heard there's a guy named David Goggins. He's an endurance athlete. He's not necessarily an ultra runner, but he's a popular motivational figure. He's from States, but I'm not a huge fan of him as an ultra runner, but he sometimes brings good ideas. And he brought this idea of a cookie jar, where he says, basically, every time you do some hard thing, either in training or your previous races, things are hard, but you persevere. You take that cookie as an experience and you put it in your cookie jar, and you keep piling up those cookies in that jar day after day, month after month. And comes the race day, you race, you run into something hard, you feel like it's impossible to get through, you open that cookie jar and you pull out those cookies of experience that you gained over years and years, and you use it in that race. So very often when I run into something, I usually try to take myself to the previous race where I actually did amazing, even though things got tough. What did I do? Maybe I need to eat something different. Maybe I need to stop for a second. Maybe I need to change shoes, or maybe I just need to change my perspective and think about it different. Maybe I need to remind myself that I actually need to go into small compartments. I don't need to think about the finish line. Sometimes halfway through the race, it gets hard. Second place is getting close to you, and you start panicking, like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to lose. I'm going to lose this game, But then you remind yourself, okay, this is only, say, halfway through. It's only 80 kilometers if it's a 100-mile race. I got another 50 miles to go. Well, so many things can go wrong for the guys behind me in that 50 mile. And so many things can go right for me in the next 50 miles. So you just keep changing that perspective, keep telling yourself, okay, this might be a little setback, but that's okay. We'll take one step back, so we could take 2 or 3 steps forward within the next hour or so. And that's how you kind of keep talking to yourself. And the biggest thing too, the self-talk as well. Positive self-talk or positive reinforcement, just telling yourself sometimes the lies. Sometimes you have to lie yourself in order to get through this pain patch or get out of the pain cave. And in ultra running, it's not like a marathon where you are surrounded by many people pretty much through entire race. In ultra running, sometimes you spend hours and hours at night in the middle of nowhere on the trail, just with bears and other wildlife, basically. And you end up talking to yourself. You end up convincing yourself that, okay, you can do great things, you can achieve it, you can finish it, you pull out those cookies, you keep breaking into little compartments, and before you know it, you are on the up, on the high. And I try to surf that high wave as long as possible, even though sometimes it's hard. But once you get in that high and you get that runner's high, and that's, I guess, the anatomical part of running, when you're pushing yourself through all these miles and hours of running, your body excretes a lot of hormones that make you feel high, and that's, I guess, the best part of running, getting high without using any substances. Runner's high is the thing, and sometimes you catch that high wave and you can ride it for hours, and that's my favorite part about this sport.
One of the things I find interesting about this concept is a broader cultural idea. I feel like culturally there's a lot of messaging in our cultures about wanting to avoid pain or discomfort. And I see this as something that I think is a bit of a false idea. Like, there's all these ideas about stress, and stress is terrible, and stress is this, stress is that. And I found in my own life, stress applied properly is actually massively beneficial to me growing as a human being. And that, it sounds like you're talking about that is because when I see I put myself under stress, that's where you're putting a cookie in the jar that you can use later, and you can access that you overcame something, and you're like, I've done this before, I can do it again. And it gives you that confidence to move forward and to be stronger the next time you face a challenge.
Yeah, it seems like it's really just overcoming adversities, and then those cookies represent sort of the resilience and the experience that you sort of gain from it, and then it makes you kind of tougher moving through.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and you start talking about stress, Luke, and in fact, people see that biologically stress is actually a good thing. In multiple aspects, for instance, cold stress or heat stress, where you're exposing yourself to a little bit of, say, sauna heat or cold plunges heat, or hunger stress. If people now getting into that intermittent fasting, talking like, wow, this is producing hormones against aging. So if you are kind of stressing your body just to an extent. And same thing with physical training. So if you're walking a little bit, stressing, or people just getting into, say, resistance training. They say resistance training is the best training you can do nowadays if you want to stop aging. Because, you put your body through a little bit of stress, your body starts thinking, okay, something's going on. We have to work towards, working against that stress. And that's where it's getting better. You're getting stronger. Same thing with the mental stress, right? There's nothing wrong with getting stressed. Like, people say, oh, my job is stressful. That could be a good thing, to an extent, right?
Yeah.
Like, just like if it's too cold, well, you're gonna die.
Eventually you'll die.
Right? Yeah. Same thing with this stress. If you were too stressed at work, okay, that's not good for your mental health. However, if you have a little bit of stress, I actually love that part of my job. If I have a little bit of stress, I overcome it, it helps me. It helps me to move forward. Not only as a professional in, say, insurance industry, but as a professional in ultra running too, because I overcome that challenge. So next time I run into it, well, first I'll approach it different. I'll have this resistance and this experience that I will just use and overcome it next time easier.
And one of the things in terms of my career and actually my life I've always done is I feel like, and I never want to stop this. This is something culturally like I don't fully understand. It's like, okay, we all have to retire and the goal is to stop. And I'm like, I just want to keep getting better every day. And if I feel a little bit uncomfortable every day, I'm going to keep getting better. And it's instead of avoiding the discomfort, it's leaning into the discomfort. And I imagine like you're doing that at such an intense level when you're, in an ultra marathon, you have to lean into that discomfort to keep going. So let's go back to the backyard, because I know there's more details about that are really interesting, like how you slept, how you ate, how you kept going. And I think, was there 75 competitors that started and how they would drop out? Like there's lots of stories that I think are super interesting about that. But why don't you take us through that?
Yeah, for sure. You got a good memory, look, on the number of participants, everything. You should do it one day.
I'm too old for that.
We've got come on, you're not too old. You can't say that.
Okay.
We have one in Abbotsford.
The backyard?
Fat Dog backyard.
Really?
It's every March. So you should at least, come and give it a try. You don't have to run 5 days, know. But you can go, to see what...
5 hours.
5 hours, yes. I'm 1/100th of Ihor.
But again, it takes 2 people to go 5 days, right? So the rules are saying basically, if you are the last man standing, you are allowed to do one more loop, and that's when the race is over. So even say if the second last person drops out, you cannot keep going until you are, done. You just do one loop, and that's when the race is over. So that was backyard was my second ultra in my career. It was in British Columbia and Salmon Arm. It was a provincial championship, and the winner would get into a national championship. So you suffer for a couple of days for the opportunity to suffer more later on the national level. And that's how ultra running works. And I wasn't sure if I even wanted to sign up for that race, just because it's just such a different format and it's somewhat slow and you got to conserve. So different strategy, different approach. But my girlfriend convinced me. She said, hey, well, what's the worst going to happen? You're just going to fail. But that's it. Life doesn't end there. Okay. At least you try this format and to yourself, it's not your thing. It's like, yeah, it's a pretty good thought and idea. And like, sure, let's do it. So I signed up for it. And I ended up winning it with 39 hours. And I pushed through one night and was getting into the second night. And before I knew it, I was the last man standing. And I felt, obviously, I was somewhat beat up. 39 hours is a lot of running. It was like 80 miles, something along that line. Anyways. And so that qualified me for the nationals. That was in October later that year. And national championship, basically, so what it is, it's national and international, or teams international championship. So every country has 15 runners, and those 15 runners run in their countries simultaneously. Everyone starts the same time. You can watch them on YouTube, and that whichever country runs the most loops wins. So all those loops that each runner runs get added together, and whichever country runs the most wins. And then the winner of that national championship goes to the World Championship, which was in Tennessee last year. So as I was at that national championship, we ended up running 67 hours, which was the new national record. The previous was 52. So there was a huge jump there. And myself and the gentleman from Quebec ended up running. So he ran 66 hours. He stopped. I was allowed to do one more loop, and I did one more loop, and that's basically concluded the race and qualified me for the Worlds. And again, so I ran into third night there. And at that point, when I started that race, I didn't know if I could go through the second night. So I would have to strategize for that. And that's where you have to be as efficient as possible, as effective as possible if you want to go into that realm, going that far. That's where you realize, okay, you actually need to try to sleep a little bit, because, you can go only this far without sleep. So at night, every hour, I would say run 50-minute loop. I would come to my tent in the base camp, so I have 10 minutes left. I would lay down, close my eyes, and try to sleep. First night was hard to sleep, excitement and this and that, and you're not that tired. So I would just try to rest. Just close my eyes, rest, recover. But come second night, okay, well, your body has at this point over 150 miles, and your body is just so tired that the second I would lay down, I would sleep. I would actually dream for whatever 7-8 minutes that I would nap. Every hour, I would dream, and those were vivid dreams. So your body is just so tired that it just dives into the rapid eye movement stage of sleep where you're dreaming. So you're recovering that.
How do you wake up?
So you have a crew. That's
your favorite part.
Yeah. So when we ended up going to the Worlds, I had my friend, she's from Agassiz, she's also an ultra runner. So you're allowed to have one crew. Her name is Marina. So she was responsible for feeding me, getting everything ready for me, helping me with changing shoes if needed, waking me up. And that's the thing. So I would lay down, she would cover me with a blanket, just because it was kind of cold at night, and she would she would make sure that I don't sleep through it. So 3 minutes before the start, the ring goes off, 2 minutes and 1 minute as well. So technically, she could hear the sounds, right? But if I'm asleep, I obviously can't. And I have my earplugs so that I couldn't hear anyone else because it's 75 people around, right? At the beginning. And so she would just like rip that blanket off me. And it's like, it was so cold. I remember it's like so horrible. I hated her so much every hour, at night. But it would just kind of make me get up, and feeling the cold actually helped. I like to keep myself cold because it actually keeps you awake at night. And because your body is basically afraid to fall asleep, because if it fall asleep, you're going to die, it's too cold. And so 75 people started the race from, I think, 30 plus countries all over the world. So the best 75 people in this format. And it was interesting. So the record here in Canada was 67, but the world record was 102 already. So there was a gentleman from Australia who ran 102 hours, and he was there too. There were two people who ran 101 hours there, and then there's a lot of in 90s and 80s and so on. And so after 24 hours, we lost only 3 people. You were like, holy shoot, we ran 24 hours, 100 miles, and we lost only 3. Like, are you kidding me? I was like, okay, well, this is going to go for a long haul. 48 hours, we lost only 23 people. I was like, holy, like there's still so many people left. There's more than 2/3 there. And we ran 2 days. Like 48 hours could actually get you a win anywhere in Canada in any provincial championship. Yet here we still have over 50 people in the game. And then 72 hours, we still had 24 people left. So we ran 3 days, 3 nights, 300 miles, and we're still over 20 people. And you're like, oh my goodness, this is insane. So I already got the national record at that point, 72 hours. I already ran 5 hours more than anyone else in Canada previously. So if I had that goal to set the new national record, my body would have shut down there. I'm like, you know what? You achieved your goal.
Yeah.
Fine. Let's go home. Let's pack it up. Let's go have some cool Tennessee food and let's go home, right? But then I did not have that goal. I did not have a goal to achieve certain number of hours or run certain distance. I had the goal to get the most out of myself, to push myself to the brink, to the edge. I told myself I'm either going to be something is really bad to me physically, otherwise I'm not quitting. And so I went hour after hour, and then I got into 4th day, and it felt good during the day. And it's always feeling good when the sun comes out, your circadian rhythm gets reset, the world basically tells you, okay, it's time to wake up, and it helps during the day. But at night...
How many people were left at the 96-hour mark?
It was 10 people.
Oh, still 10?
Still 10 people,
okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, then the lot dropped out by 100, so there's... Yeah, so there were only 6 people left after 100, and then after 102, we had only 3 left. Yeah. So it was day 5, and I was, eventually my body was telling me, okay, well, those 7-minute naps per hour is not really enough. After 4 nights, you probably need to sleep a bit longer. So that's when your body, my mind got a little bit confused. I could not remember my name. I could not remember what I was doing. I could not remember where I was going. That's where my crew helped me a lot. She would remind me every hour what I was doing and where I was going, because I would not even sometimes remember, like, why are we here? And she would just tell me every hour, that's what you're here, that's what you're doing, you're going to run another hour, and we're going to talk about it again in an hour. And I would do that hour, and I was like, are we done? Is it everything? Like, can we go home? And I was like, no, we're not done. And that's the thing where you cannot have a family member as a crew, because they're going to feel bad for you.
Yeah.
And Marina, she's a great friend. She
hates you. She enjoys torturing you.
No, but she did her job amazing, you know, so she knew what I'm here for. I told her that I want you to push me until I'm done, completely done. And she delivered perfectly. And so eventually I ran 107.
Which is one thing I think you told me one time when I heard this before, people would just fall asleep right on the middle of the track and just be out. Yeah. So this gentleman from the Philippines that I ran into, I think hour like 83, 84, 85. And he went ahead first, and eventually I caught up with him, and I saw him laying on the trail. So I came up to him, and he had his eyes wide open, but they were moving. So he was in deep, rapid eye movement stage of sleep. His eyes were open, but he was so exhausted, he just fell asleep on the go. And so I was kind of, I was rushing, so I couldn't really take him out or anything. I just checked that his heart rate, he was fine. He's just asleep. He's just so tired that he's asleep. So I ran to the next officials and said, hey, there's a body there. You need to go collect it.
And he did collect him. And it's funny. No one has ever died in this format. Knock on wood, it's even though it sounds like so extreme. But everyone, survived that particular race. And people, just falling asleep. I remember I was there's a section at night where you run out and back, and there's a cone there where you run around and you run back. But I was so sleep deprived, I came up to that cone, and I was like looking around, trying to grab something. Like, how are they going to know I actually came here? And there's a reader there, the chip reader, so they know. But I forgot about it. It's like, what did I grab to prove that I was here? And then another runner, he ran just quietly, but not saying anything. Everyone is just so tired that you don't even talk anymore, just to conserve energy. And he ran around me, and he didn't grab anything and ran back. And I was like, I looked back at him. You didn't grab anything? What the heck? So I was like, okay. I started running after him. Eventually I finished it, and I came to my crew, Marina. I was like, Marina, did it record? Like, I didn't bring anything with me. Do they really know that I went there? And she looked at the phone and was like, yeah, there's a chip. It's recording. I'm like, oh, I see. Yeah. So you get so, your cognitive function is so deteriorated that you're becoming like some little baby, like 2-year-old child, pretty much. And so by day 5, my feet also were so swollen that I had to size two sizes up in my shoes. I had to wear shoes in size 14. My regular is 12 and a half. And I didn't have those shoes on me. So the fella from Australia, who happened to be crewing the runner who already dropped by then, he's like, oh, I wear size 14. Here, take them. And he gave me his shoes. And I was like so happy that my feet actually fit eventually in the shoe. And then I ran another like 26, 27 hours in those shoes. But by then the damage was done, and so at hour 108 we started, and I couldn't feel my left foot anymore, and I ran probably 1 kilometer. I sat down on the trail, and there was like a drone filming us, and so I took off the shoe. I tried touching my foot, and it's like it's gone. Like I couldn't feel it. So that's when I realized, okay, I could potentially inflict permanent damage to my body. I'm like, okay, I'm only 29 years old. I think I want to keep this foot for later. And that's when I decided to stop, because I was really concerned about my health. And so I walked back and I quit. So it was assist or second last man standing. So the gentleman ran another hour, and he claimed a new world record, and he was the world champion. He's a 47-year-old school teacher. So when you're talking that you're old, you're not. It's just a good time to get into backyarding.
Sounds great. Say 80% mental and 20% more mental.
Yeah.
One thing you talked about, the sort of mental toughness and fortitude. I think like one of the strategies I know that I have is always that there is a finish line. You always know you got closing submissions, and so you kind of like you push through and you kind of figure, and there's like that end. I mean, I don't think I've ever had anything. I mean, other than just the grind of life, I suppose. But where there's no end, and you just like, how do you mentally prepare for something where there's no finish line, there's no end to it?
Yeah, and it is hard. It's like you do approach this race differently, and obviously you often see people. So we start the first hour and people just shoot off trying to run it fast, and because they have a lot of energy. The race just started, you're excited, adrenaline kicks in, and you're flying there. But that's the thing with this race. What I tell myself, you always have to leave your ego at the start line, and you have to be conservative from hour one. So if you want to go far, very, very far, you have to start paying attention to details from the very beginning. They say that the professional is the person that pays attention to details, to small details. And I feel like if I want to go that far, I have to pay attention to every little thing. Like, okay, do I need to change my socks every hour? Do I need to change my shoes if something pops up? I want to make sure I hydrate from the very beginning, because the way you run your first day is going to determine how far you're going to go, how far you're going to make it. And so I would try to sleep from the very first night. If I'm in the camp, I would never stand around. Why would you stand around and just wait for the next hour? You're wasting your energy. It's all about conserving as much as possible. And when you think in that way, again, you break down just one loop at a time. So technically, there is a finish line, but only every hour. But you cannot think about certain goals. Like people always, they ask me like, oh, what's your goal? How far you want to go? I was like, I want to go as far as my body's going to let me go, And when people try to set their goals, okay, I want to just go 48 hours or 200 miles, which is a great goal. It's a great distance. It's a huge achievement. But you mentally, it's going to shut you down once you achieve it. So you're not going to be motivated to keep pushing. So I would say never set those goals in the backyard. You cannot set the time goal or distance goal. It's all about breaking it down and doing one loop at a time, 1 hour at a time, until you cannot.
What makes you want to get to that level of absolute exhaustion and fatigue, and just like beat up, like what makes you be like, hey, well, I want to get to within an inch of my life, and that's where I'm
okay, Brian. Well, that's not the exhaustion I'm seeking. Exhaustion is the byproduct. It's like the excellence that I'm seeking to see an ultimate human performance that I'm seeking. I'm just so curious to see what we as human species are capable of. And I was always curious about our bodies and our minds. I feel like we know a lot about our bodies for sure, but so little known about our brains and our minds and how strong we are. And I feel like ultra running, in particular backyard format too, helps me to get into those realms that are not accessible on a daily basis. And when I get into those deep pain caves, inside the pain caves, and I'm capable to persevere and push through, it gives me that feeling of achievement and the feeling of excellence and that kind of superiority over myself from yesterday. Not superiority over other people, but over myself, realizing that we're actually capable of much, much more than we think. Just like we talked previously, we often settle for comfort, right? We often choose the path of least resistance, and that's what our brain is set for at the beginning. We always choose this kind of escape route. However, if we take the longer way, if we take the other route, I think we can kind of open up a huge box of opportunities and possibilities that help us to realize what we as humans are capable of, and not only physically but predominantly mentally. And it definitely helps with my quality of life, helps me to realize how powerful we are as species here on Earth. And it's just an amazing feeling. And exhaustion is just a byproduct. It is just a byproduct, that we have to walk around or walk all over. Yeah.
So we had so that was the backyard marathon. So the Barkley, so you finished the Barkley Marathon, which is a lot of years no one finishes. I think it's 1985 it started, and there's been 20 finishers in almost 40 years. Right. So, and it was 4 last year, so it was only 16 before that. And so very few people have ever even finished this race. So walk us through that and what that looked like for you and the format of the race, because it's quite different than the backyard, but yeah.
Yeah, so the Barkley Marathon is one of the most notorious and oldest ultra marathons out there. It's been around since 1986, so for almost 40 years. And it is organized by the same guy who created the backyard format. So
this guy must be sadistic.
That's right. Yeah. They call him the Leonardo da Vinci of pain. So Barkley was first. Backyard is a relatively new format. The first race was in 2011, but the Barkley Marathon has been around for
You're looking forward to this third format, hey?
Yeah, which is yeah. I mean, he's got other races, but they're not as popular as these two. So what Barkley is known for, basically the low finishing rate, the lowest in ultra running. That's below 1%, which is ridiculous. At this point, only 20 people were able to finish the race.
How many people start that race? I don't think
40.
Okay. 40,
so it's you don't get a lot of people to start with, and the whole the challenge of Barkley starts with ability to figure out how to get in. Because if you Google Barkley, there's no website, there's no registration online. You can't just sign up, and you can't find how to sign up. You have to figure it out. And the race director says, if you are worthy Barkley, you'll figure out how to get in. So you spend hours, days, months, and years. Some people, spend years trying to figure out how to get in, and they can't. And once you do figure out, so it's not a secret, you have to actually write a letter to him proving or explaining why you want to do Barkley Marathons. And if he likes that reason, he'll let you in. And so he lets 40 people every year to do Barkley Marathons. It happens in Frozen Head State Park, Tennessee, USA. It's a looped course. So technically it's 5 loops. Each loop is around marathon distance. So that's why Barkley Marathons. You have 12 hours to finish each loop, or 60 hours combined. And you would think, okay, 12 hours to finish marathon. Okay, I can walk probably. Well, here's the trick. You end up gaining around 4,000 meters per loop, or 20,000 over entire Barkley, which is more than climbing Everest twice. And you are almost never on the trails. Most of the time you're off trails. You're not allowed GPS watch. You're not allowed your phone. You have just a map. You have a compass. And there is no markers. There is no people there to help you. And how he knows that you do the loop, he puts books on that loop. And you find the book, you have to rip the page that corresponds to the bib number that you have on you. Every loop, he gives you a different bib number. And the proof that you ran there is that page that you rip off from the book. So what we do, we're just destroying the books there for 60 hours. And it's off trail, most of it, and the terrain is absolutely horrible. You are not allowed to train there previously, so you don't even know what it is unless you are in Barkley. And once you're there, you realize, like, oh, okay, that's why only 20 people finish, because it's either up or down. It's never flat. There's not a single meter of flat ground at Barkley. So you would go up and down. It's covered with briars. There is a lot of cliffs, and you get instructions where the books are just the night before the race. So you don't know it until basically at Barkley. And then you put it on your map. You don't get a map. You have to put those instructions on your map. You have a compass, and good luck. And so you do over 130 miles with 20,000 meters of gain with just map and compass. You're trying to navigate, so you have to be a navigator. And obviously, after skipping or climbing and running so long, it's really hard to think, but you can't really turn off your brain. Say, in the backyard, you just run the loops, you follow the markers, you can turn off your brain and just methodically and just mechanically complete this loop. Here at Barkley, you don't have that ability. You have to think, because if you take the wrong turn or if you go a little bit off bearing, you're going to end up in the wrong spot. And they say there's no small mistakes at Barkley. All mistakes are big there, because the finishing times are never like in 40s or 50s. It's always close to the cutoff. So if you look at the finishing times, the cutoff is 60 hours. Everyone's finishing like 59 something. I was able to finish 58:44, which is still so close to the cutoff. So if you make a small mistake, it's going to result into a big mistake. You're out. And that's why only 20 people finished it. Since 1986, many years there was no finishers, because if you actually add bad weather, which is frequently a case at Frozen Head State Park, there's fog, there's rain, the terrain is horrible to climb or descend. How do you navigate in fog when you see only a couple meters ahead of you? It's terrible. So this year we lucked out with the weather. The weather was hot, but at least visibility was perfect, so we were able to navigate. And that's why we had actually 5 finishers this year, the first time in the history of Barkley, because we all teamed up and we worked together against the course for the first 4 loops. But loop number 5, the rules say that you are not allowed to work together. So you're alone and you go in different directions. So clockwise, counterclockwise. And so think about it. We've been climbing and running for 48, 50 hours at that point. You're alone. We're going into the darkness. You have just map and compass, and you have to think alone. There's no more buddy there to help you, and you have to make that loop. And after 4 loops, the skin on my soles and my feet, it completely flaked off. It's called kind of trench foot. So every step was painful, and even my crew there, and the race director, he saw my feet too, because I was changing socks after the 4th loop, and he said that there's no way he's going to finish it. But again, I was not focused on the pain. I shelved that pain, which is another strategy I use, where you put pain on the shelf, you leave it there for the time of the race, and when you finish it, you pick it up, and that kind of mentally helps me to get distracted from the pain, because every step was horrible, painful, because there's no skin there anymore. And I was focused on book to book. So from one book, I would move to another book again. I would break it down from one book to another. And every time I hit the book, I find the right spot. I would celebrate myself. I would call myself a great navigator. And before I know it, I finished that loop. And I was the first Canadian Barkley finisher. And I was able to finish it first this year. And this year was also the first time that a female finished Barkley, because it was known that females are not strong enough to finish Barkley. And Jasmine Paris, she proved everyone wrong, basically, that, okay, actually females are strong enough and we can finish Barkley. So she became the first female, which was kind of cool to watch history there, because she finished with 99 seconds to spare. She was sprinting the last 100, 200 meters, which is uphill, and she just collapsed over that gate to the finish line, and she left it all out there. She couldn't speak. That even the day after, like, she lost her voice. She literally left every single bit of energy out there on the course.
So you finished an hour and 16 minutes before the 60-hour mark. I was curious about how that ranks in terms of times overall in terms of the Barkley.
Okay, so here's another thing about Barkley. Every time there is a finisher,
they make it harder.
The course gets harder.
Yeah.
So the course that was 10 years ago is much easier. Actually, I saw the map from 10 years, and I was like...
I could do this in my sleep.
Give me that one.
I was like, yeah, because there was the finisher who did it in 2013, 14. He finished it there, and he tried it again last year with a obviously 10-year harder course, and he said, "There's no way I can finish it. Like this is too stupid." And this year they actually added the hill, the new section, which is not even on the map.
Yeah,
because we go to this store and we buy the map. Obviously, we don't get anything. You gotta supply everything yourself. And that section where the book was, the new book, was not on the map. So we would have to go off the map, and so now the course is so hard that even if you're the strongest, the fittest, and you have the best weather, you're still going to get super close to that 60-hour mark. And answer your question, Luke, so the record, the course record, which is kind of wrong because every year the course is different, but the course record is just about 52 hours.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
so there's no way it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, no matter, you can be on all possible drugs and performance enhancers, whatever, you cannot complete it that
But
fast.
I heard you called Lazarus out when you finished so early and made fun of his race.
I was just being silly. Well, when I finished, I said that, so you should add the 6th loop, which no one has ever said. And it's funny, I just dropped it as a joke, but the guy who's responsible for communication, he put it on Twitter, and everyone called me, "This guy is stupid. He's going to make things worse for the next year." And it's funny because one of the race officials who's helping the race director, he said that, "Yeah, man, like, you look too good for this race. We don't want people to think that Barkley is so easy." But I was just putting the face. Obviously, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. It is as hard and as horrible as it is described in media and in the movies. It's just, sometimes you got to put on the face, to finish it.
Did you find it harder than the backyard?
See, it's I found if you take effort per kilometer or per hour, nothing beats Barkley. It's so hard. You gotta work so hard, nonstop within all 60 hours, no breaks. But mentally, I found it easier, maybe because I had this experience of backyard a few months prior where I went through 4 nights with no sleep, running for 4.5 days. And so when we were getting into the second night of Barkley, many people were kind of sleepy, falling asleep. And, well, I was sleepy too, but I was like, man, I went through 4 nights. This is only
That's a
2.
big cookie in your cookie jar.
I know. There you go. Yes. Now we're talking. So I pulled out the cookie. I'm like, okay, this is just half of that. So, and it helped me. I was never so sleep deprived that I needed to take a nap. I didn't take a nap. I clearly knew where I was. I knew how to navigate. I knew how to use my map, even though we were getting into the second night of running. So mentally, I found backyard was harder because I feel like at that point, I actually reached somewhat the edge of my capabilities or my strengths. But at the same time, I just know there's attention to little details. If I change some things for the next time, I know that I can go further. With Barkley, when I finished, physically, well, other than my feet and the skin, again, which also I could work on, come up with different feet care strategy, I felt like, okay, well, I'm actually not that bad. I'm feeling okay. And that's why I kind of joked saying, okay, let's add 6 loop.
So we're running low on time now. So kind of the last question I wanted to ask you was around, we've touched on this a little bit, but how do you translate these things that you've learned through ultramarathoning into your ordinary life and things you'd recommend for people? We've talked about stress and we've talked about putting your body under stress and what your mind can do. And I think that those are all fascinating topics. And so how do you like you work at Hub Insurance now, how do you imagine these things translate into your relationships, all types of things. So walk us through your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I found a lot of parallels, ultra running and other walks of life, either career goals or personal life goals. Ultra running is all about relentless moving through no matter what obstacles life throws at you. No matter what obstacles race gets ready for you. And life is very similar. It's all about navigating all these obstacles and getting through the walls that get put in front of you, either breaking those walls and moving around them. And very often I see things happen in career or in your professional lives, and you could definitely relate, guys, when things get scary or tough. Sometimes you're afraid of making that phone call, or you're afraid to say no. And if, as you can imagine, say in insurance world, we don't often bring good news to people. Sometimes it's bad news, right? And you just have to be able to navigate that properly. And I feel like ultra running helps me to get that courage and give me those tools and skills, or those cookies that help me to push through, to navigate, or to have a better attitude to life. I heard an interesting thought the other day that when you do kind of hard things, the regular things, life duties, become so much easier, so much lighter. And this person gave a good example. It's like sometimes you go to the airport and you see people are stressing and they're nervous and they're worried that your flight gets delayed or you're going to lose your baggage. And, but then when in ultra running, when you push through these hard things where you're literally on the brink of dying there, but you keep going, when you don't feel your foot, but you keep moving, or you come to the airport, man, this is relaxing. We're flying somewhere. It's so great. You're going to take care of my luggage. Everything's going to go smooth. Air transportation is the safest way of traveling, so you kind of change the way you think about these mundane daily things, because that things can be much worse, and they were worse for you, and you persevered, you pushed through, you overcame, and I guess that's where running helps, and I found all those parallels are really applicable in daily life. Same with a personal life, if you want to be a better husband, better spouse, you want to be a better parent or child to your parents, it helps you to navigate all those little obstacles, which are in reality, you just make them up. They're not really things that even worth, dwelling on per se. And it's all about just, relentless movement towards your goal while breaking into compartments, step after step. But before you know it, there's going to be that finish line that you wanted to reach to begin with.
One of the things that comes up a lot in what we do is fear. And it's when you start out as a young lawyer, you're terrified. You're in the courtroom, the other lawyer is trying to beat you. The judge might yell at you. Your client's there looking at you, expecting big results. And there's pressure coming from all directions. And there's a lot of fear in a courtroom. And as you go through the development of this career, fear is just this constant thing that is nipping at you. And I'm so interested in how I've navigated fear. And for me, it's always something that when I feel it, I want to go after it. I want to attack it. That concept of the cookies is I look back and I'm like, oh, look at all the fears I've overcome in my life. And so when I face the next fear, I have that resilience, those tools to say, I've faced something way worse than this. And it's like your airport example, something stressful happens. And I'm like, it's no big deal. Whereas 10 years ago, I would have been like, not able to sleep, losing my mind. And now it's like, whatever, I'll get through this. And I've done it before and I'll do it again. But the thing, I think the challenge of being a great human is continuing to face those fears and not shirk from them and continuing to take them on. Winston Churchill is one of my heroes of life, and he became Prime Minister of England to fight Hitler in World War II. He was 65 years old. And he'd already lived an enormously full life, and he was an MP till he was 90, and he continually just took on challenges and fears, and it's something that I see as very inspirational. I'm very inspired by your story, and one thing you didn't talk about in your story, though, is fear. And obviously you're in a lot of physical pain, but is there fear in your mind? How do you tackle that?
Yeah, there's always fear, especially fear of unknown when you're talking about backyard, right? So you're stepping there and you don't know when you're gonna finish it, right? And just like you were telling about your career as your young lawyer started, you had those fears, and I had those fears too. I'm like, what if I'm not gonna be good? What if I'm gonna fail? What if I'm gonna suck wind 20 kilometers into the race, even though it's a 100-mile race, right? But it's all about I usually say, accept it, embrace it, move past it. So fear is there. It's normal. We're human beings. It's okay. If you are not afraid of something, if you don't have fear, it means you have a problem. There's something wrong with you.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. It's good. It's just like pain. It means it's telling you something is off there. You gotta pay attention to it. If you have fear, it's okay. It's just saying that, okay, there's this challenge and you have to accept it. You have to embrace it and move past it. And once you have those cookies, next time you run into this fear, well, is it actually fear? No, because you already dealt with it, and the more you do it, the more experience you have, the easier it is to face that fear or face the new fear. You brought up Winston Churchill. There's an interesting quote of him that I really love. I'm also a fan of Winston Churchill, but it's probably not going to support our topic. However, so when he was in his 90s, they asked him, like, what's the secret to the success? And it's like, what did he do to live such a long life, even though he went through multiple stresses, world wars, right? And he said, hey, well, a glass of wine, a good cigar, and no exercise whatsoever.
So that's a great line. But it's kind of untrue, because I didn't know this about Winston Churchill, but he became world famous in the late 1800s, 1899, the Boer War in South Africa. He was a soldier and was captured. And he escaped, and he ran 300 miles to Mozambique.
There you go.
And he became world famous because of that. So he did an ultramarathon too.
A bit of a liar there, I guess. Yeah.
Maybe at that age he was no longer exercising.
What's next?
So a bit on an injury spree right now, so I'm going to take care of that. Nothing really serious, just trying to, I guess, listen to my body. I did a lot of ultra running within a very short time, and so my body tells me, okay, you got to take care of yourself. And I want to be long in this sport, still only 29, so you see people in their 47 beating me, crushing it, so I want to be even better at that stage. And if I want to be in this sport for a long haul, I have to take care of my body and listen to my body, and that's what actually helped me to get through all these races too, being in tune with my body. But hoping to get back to the World Championship next year, backyard, and hopefully I can do better than last year. And
200 hours.
You know what? It's people are talking about 150 hours, and it just sounds ridiculous. And I'm like, I think it is potentially possible. So it's still about, I want to keep exploring my body, my mind, and see what we are truly capable of.
That's amazing. Amazing story. Thanks so much for coming today. And
very inspiring. Thank you so much.
Really inspiring.
Thank you, guys.
You're watching The Luke Bryan Show.